Hi, David.
Good morning, Greg.
How you doing?
Just fine, thank you.
Excellent, excellent. And this week is our scheduled stream,
Mm-hmm.
and we have a we have a guest today.
There's one person already who's a Patreon.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Dominic.
Hi
Uh,
guys. Hi everybody.
Good morning. Good morning.
Yeah, and just a reminder to any of our other Patreons, we posted the link in the Discord and on our Patreon. So if you
Mm-hmm.
would like to join us, you can join us here. And if you want information on what's happening, patreon.com/3D make it is for all your info there.
Yep.
Helge is at the top with tree supports, and everyone else on this list. We want to thank you very much. If you do join, you'll get access to the Discord, as we mentioned, and you can have a really great conversation. Dominic is always engaged in there and posting some links to interesting videos and whatnot. So, yeah, just thought we would update you guys on that. So, what's new with you, Dominic? Have you been printing anything?
No, I haven't been doing much of anything. I've gone through a weird spell there where I was ill for a long while,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of knocked me off the bike for a while. And then lately I've been doing Arduino things with my grandson.
Well,
Oh
absolutely.
yeah.
And that thing.
That's making and tinkering and stuff. So that's awesome. So
Yeah,
he's
I want
liking
him to
the
get involved in that. Yeah, so far.
yeah.
I bought him uh, to start out with. I bought him the theremin kit you see everywhere.
Oh
So he
yeah.
built a
Yeah.
theremin,
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
neat.
and I also got him this huge construction kit with Arduino and all this kind of other stuff that we want to get him involved in. And I want to get it. I think he'd be interested in robotics, and
Nice.
Yeah.
he's old enough. He's old.
Yeah. Yeah. How old is he?
He's going to be 14.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So this is the right age to do all that stuff. Yeah. My
Yeah.
last weekend I was in Calgary for the Vex Robotics regionals. There was people from London, England, all over the states. They're all competing for the worlds. The top two teams are going to. I'm not sure if it's this weekend or next weekend. They're going to Texas for the Vex Robotics Championship. So yeah, it was pretty cool to see. There was 136 teams competing, so it was pretty cool.
Very cool. Yep.
Yeah. What about you, David? What have you been up to?
Oh, shenanigans.
Well, that's
Yeah. Still trying to sell one printer, but I keep flip flopping on which printer it's gonna be. I need the space for another laser, you see.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're looking at a CO2
nice.
laser. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. David was showing me a few of the projects that he's done and his wife has done. They did some really cool cutting boards where they etched the cutting board, and then she did the resin inlay. It was really cool.
Yeah, like it's pretty neat. Like it's definitely the exact opposite of 3D printing because you're taking away material, right? So it's a fun little project
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely.
I think like it's not like the open air lasers aren't as scary. Is that the right word? I don't know if that's the right word, but they're not. They're when you use things with respect,
Well, yeah,
Um,
you don't burn your eyeballs out.
yeah, that's the words, right? Like, um, you just got to be careful and have the right space and good ventilation. So, but yeah, no, that's kind of
Yeah,
shenanigans.
and most of your diode lasers aren't even enclosed, which that can
No,
be
yeah,
weird.
my mine wasn't, but I bought the enclosure kit for it, right? So then it's enclosed behind a
Mm,
um that has like it's the orange color of plastic, so then the laser can't actually penetrate and
Right.
blind you.
How's my
So
volume now?
I turned you up after he
Did you?
complained about it, so
Okay.
you were almost off, son.
Which
You
is
were only
weird because
one tick about on.
weird. Okay.
Dominic did it.
ah,
But yeah, I mean, and then printing wise, I've just I made a part to fix some grommet holes on my desk that were drilled too large, and then I made an
Yeah.
insert. It's a double grommet now.
Double
It's
grommet.
inception.
Well, I took our a little thing at work and I went too far with it and designed a whole Homer Simpson inanimate carbon rod hand. So
Does
it's
it
the
stay in
hand
Rod We
and the
Trust still?
base. No, this one doesn't say in Rod We Trust, but yeah,
Laser it on.
we could. Yeah. So that and this was all done actually in Fusion 360. So I'm getting a little bit better with Fusion, but I'm sure there's better modeling stuff to do something like this than Fusion.
I mean, probably, but we use what we use, right? Good
Hi,
morning,
Gary.
Gary.
my grandson uses a blender for
Yeah.
he's trying to get into game development. He doesn't do any
Yeah,
3D stuff, but he knows far more about Blender than I do.
right. Well, and that might
I'm
have
trying to
been
think.
better done in Blender, potentially, but I had to start somewhere, and I'm familiar with that software, so I'm like, I'm going to attempt this. And
You never know.
It's always better to go with what you. It's always better to go with what you know.
yeah, well, it's not necessarily more efficient, but at least you know you're going to get something potentially that'll look roughly like you were expecting.
Mhm.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Very true. I mean, and the project is always like a time invested versus output. And since this was a practical joke, kinda, it's
Yeah.
always better to start with something instead of like I'm going to take Blender lessons because wow, that's a
Yeah.
lot of learning.
150 hours later. Oh, look, I kind of made something.
I, hey, look, I know how to move the camera around the stage now. Woohoo!
Yeah. Just so everyone knows, we're only going till 10:45, I believe today. Is that right, David?
Ah,
Yeah. So
I have an engagement to get to. So.
yes. So I mean, I could stick around a bit longer, so that's not a problem. But David has a heart out.
I am ditching you all. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So we were kind of chatting before the show a bit about multi-material printing and people wanting, it's a new popular thing again. And we were talking about getting into it now. Like as you may or may not know, we have a Bamboo Lab, the new one. Hopefully that doesn't catch fire coming. It shouldn't. It's a trusted frame, but it's the enterprise version of the Bamboo Labs carbon. So we'll see.
It's got the AMS and then the heated chamber with carbon filter and HEPA filter and blah
Yeah.
blah blah blah.
So,
All
like,
all
it-
the things that
good.
we need to run in a school environment. The only thing it doesn't have is CSA approval. Now
which is why
it
will
it
never
has
run
every
at the school.
it. What's interesting is it has every other approval under the sun almost on the box,
Yeah.
and I don't know if Ray can comment on this or not, but Bamboo sent my contact info to a local distributor in Vancouver, and they're telling me that they can get it CSA approved for $100. And I'm like, okay, I haven't heard of this sort of a thing before. Seems a little sketchy, but and if you don't know, CSA is just the Canadian Standards Association. So that's our kind of UL. There is a ULCA as well, but UL is, the Underwriter Laboratories or whatever. They do a lot of the electrical certification for North America. You'd think that would be good enough for Canada, but apparently our insurance company at the time, now we should maybe need to review that with them, but that was not good enough for our insurance company. So
Ray agrees. It seems sketchy.
yeah,
It like, because like
right?
when you, so it's really weird in Canada because Canada, the CSA recognizes UL, but it doesn't mean that they approve it as CSA approved. So like it's really strange. But we're looking at getting that guy.
They,
They'll probably
they know how to spell it.
Yeah, right. They know
Yeah.
how to spell it. So like that. I mean, that seems to be like the what is the ALS? No, what's the multi-print thing on the Bamboo called? I forget.
AMS.
AMS, yes. One's a disease, one's a printer thing. So the AMS on the Bamboo is pretty popular. The other one we were chatting about, and we talked a little bit about it, I think, maybe last week, or last time. But the 3D Chameleon was an option there too, and I think Dominic, you were looking kind of towards that one, eh?
And Gary in chat was talking about the black box. He says it looks really cool. It's a tool changer. Is that the one you're talking about, Gary? It's Black Box 3D XYZ is their website, I think.
It's pretty cool. It's beefy and it's 29. Like he says, it's 2,900 American is for the kit.
It's pretty fancy.
So like, here's
the chameleon that you were talking about, Dominic. That was how much, David?
I think you can get the
179.
Yeah,
179 American.
So like, and that one looks pretty like decent as far as like color changing, right? It handles it similar to the AMS as well, right? It's one nozzle with a filament basically changer above it. So it's
once you do your initial setup, then it's everything is just handled in G-code.
Yeah, and I know when it originally came out, and I'd like to see a little more on it. Maybe I'll have to do a bit of research and come back to it too. But I know that when he first released this particular device, the Chameleon, he said that he was going to try to make the waste output better.
Right.
But back 4 years ago or so, whatever, when the first one came out, we were all just concerned about, wow, we want it to look cool and print, and now we're like, we want to look cool, print, and have less waste, please. So
it's got a way. The new one has a way to if you put like another model that's of the right size, it'll instead of creating waste, it'll do it as infill.
Yeah, a lot of them, like even the Bamboo. I've been doing a little research on those, and you can have an additional model, like you said, the same height, and use it as the transitioning between, so that your wipe
Yeah.
is
Is actually
is less, and then you can also
yeah.
reduce your waste. The other way to
One and a half.
reduce your waste is if you do multiple models of the same thing, it's the same amount of waste as doing a single model. So that's the other way of
Mm.
doing it. If you want to do 12 colored models, then you're wasting the same amount of filament with their little poop or whatever they call it, the
Well,
waste,
and that's the
at the end.
yeah.
So optimizing your printing that way is another way. Ray probably
Yeah.
has some tips. Yeah, purge
Virgin
into
to
infill
infill or purge in the
also
model.
helps.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I'm
and I
sure
mean
Sure, because
that's the way to
Ray's wife
go.
uses it all the time. So and he uses, so he's probably got some tips for us. Once he says he's just waiting for a print to finish, and then he'll join us on the stream.
I think
So
that
Yeah, I was
like
just thinking you could probably also print a model that you know you're going to paint and just
Mhm.
have it print,
yeah.
you know, do a thing.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think that's the like it's a better way to handle waste, especially the infill, because you're putting infill anyway, right? So you
yeah.
might as
Well,
well
and yeah.
use
So and instead of having a purge tower, you have a purge model.
yeah.
I mean, you can get some models that whatever they look cool with multiple colors, And what
Yeah.
if it's just a practical print? Like, it's
Yeah,
just a practical print that you're going to use to hold something up or whatever. Who cares if it's 500 colors?
Yeah.
you
yeah.
know?
Well, and that's just it, right? Like I actually started hooking the palette back up to one of the printers too, which was an interesting experience, honestly, because like the palette now, this one we have is the Palette 2 Pro S or S Pro
Yeah,
or however
S
they did
Pro
that.
or whatever it
But
was.
like, and that palette's from 2018, I want to say, is when we bought it, maybe early
2017,
2019.
2018, yeah, whenever. Yeah,
But
it was new at the time.
the so it came with the Raspberry Pi that we can't find the power
Yeah.
cord for, so
And
no problem, right?
I've looked
Whatever.
everywhere.
And then so we're pretty sure it's somewhere at work, maybe. But we went to build a new one, which you could totally do. There's instructions for it on the website. The catch is support for it ended like 4 versions ago in Octoprint. So when you try to flash Octoprint, it doesn't work in the new one, and you can't use the version of Octoprint that supports it on an Raspberry Pi 4 because the Raspberry Pi 4 didn't even come out then. So the version of Octoprint that you have to use is on a 3B, and I think it was just after, thankfully, just after the Python switch, but before the 4. So it's been a little bit of work. I'm hoping maybe this week to put 10 minutes back into it and finish that process.
Right.
Um, the the we wanted just to use it as a filament joiner because one of our friends was printing like a very large project, and
A
spoiler
lot.
alert, palettes and AMSs and those are really good at just adding filament in if you run out.
Well, and especially when you've only got like a meter or two left on your
Right.
roll.
Mhm. Yep. Ray says fidget toys are great to print with like the purge and access.
Yeah,
and
that's
totally
true. You just need a tall enough
Mhm.
fidget toy, and away you go. Yep,
Yep. It's a good use for them.
yep,
Yep.
for sure.
But like I did see too, just to mention, given an honorable mention, there is somebody released a full solution for the K1 printer as well for multi materials, and you can get it from uh, this is called Digital Inventors, but it's basically an instruction on how to build it, and it costs a lot less if you're personally building it rather for like a corporate project. But like it looks like a 3 filament system that can go on top, very similar looking to the AMS, but it will switch filaments out in the K1. Have no idea how much it costs because they don't tell you, but um, it has all the stuff you need to build it and that kind of stuff. So and I think we were talking about the AMS on an Ender at one point, or
Yeah,
was
well,
one of
I
those
think
reality
I mean,
printers.
Ray has with the enraged. No, was it the
Enraged rabbit carrot feeder.
carrot
Yeah,
feeder?
yeah,
That's right.
yeah. Carrot feeder,
Um, I can't remember if you got Ray. Did you get it functional, or were you just still building it? Because I know you were building it at the time, just before you got the bamboo. So I'm just not sure kind of where that project ended up, whether it was 100% done. Because I thought it was darn close, or you had it working on something. So
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, now that we mentioned the Enraged Rabbit project, I think that's all of the projects that actually are super popular
Yeah.
out there right now, right? We came full circle. Looks like you can get the kit from Triangle Labs for $125 right now for the rabbit. So
yeah. Helge, there is a new bamboo on the way. It's the their X1 carbon 8 high temperature. It's got heated enclosure with all the bells and whistles, AMS. It's got the filters. We were talking about that just earlier in the stream. So,
yeah, it's basically, and like they call it, it's actually the actual term is X1E for enterprise. It's kind of new, and we all know that there is a bit of a recall happening right now too with the A1s from Bamboo Lab. It's really interesting when you read into it. They're like, turns out cables don't like to be bent. And you're like, yep,
shocker.
that's true. Yeah.
Well, and looking at their strain relief on it, it was very stubby and thick, and then it goes to the cable. Whereas if I were to do it, I would have it long and tapered, so that the strain relief, slowly gets lighter for a little further out from the printer. But I've seen that in a lot of cases where you have the rigid strain relief where it goes through the enclosure and then it slowly tapers so that it's reduces the stress for the further out you get, especially if you've got a bed going back and forth and it's pulling in the one direction all the time. You want to make sure you can reduce that. So Ray's here. 1 second, we'll bring him on. Hey, Ray.
Hi. Hey, Ray.
So
one thing interesting with the recall for the Bamboo Lab stuff was how they handled it. Like, it was kind of, instead of like reaching out to consumers first, they like reached out to all the YouTubers and then consumers, and it was like, I mean, maybe they're just trying to spread the news quicker, and that's one way they could do it. I don't know, or were they trying to save face with the YouTubers that'll be like, "Oh, you suck."
Ray, have you guys sold any of the models that were recalled?
We have half a skid of them sitting at the shop.
Oh shoot!
Lovely. Hopefully they'll take them back.
And they are. We're sending them back this week.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's good. How's your injury? Is it doing better?
Yeah, it's doing better. I've been back to work for 2 weeks, just working 4 hours a day. Otherwise, it's just too much for my leg.
Yeah.
But it's not too bad.
Okay, good. So you did build the Enraged Rabbit, correct?
I did.
And
it's sitting right here.
Yeah. And so did you get it to the point where you've used it, or?
No, I haven't yet. Bamboo came along.
Yeah, right.
Right. So when it prints 8 colors, are bamboos. So
yeah.
But they do have a version 2 of the Enraged Rabbit out now.
Did they modify it quite a bit, or?
It is quite a bit. Yeah, Derek has built it. He's just tailoring it for the K1 at the moment. So he's almost finished.
Nice.
I mean, there's sure a lot of those feeders out there, though. Choice is not a problem anymore.
There is, and then Frozen has their new one as well.
Mm-hmm.
The one that looks just like the AMS, Frozen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they basically cloned the AMS.
Yeah, but it's Clipper based as well.
Right.
Okay.
Well, that makes sense because, it does seem like, well, okay. So the alternate firmware that people have been putting on their bamboos, which for just disclosure, it will void your warranty. But that is supposed to be very much Clipper based, isn't it?
It
Or
is, yeah.
not? Yeah.
Yeah.
So and that's probably where they got the ability to add the AMS to Clipper, I guess.
Yeah, and I know they've been working with AMS for the Voron as well, and of course the Voron's Clipper, so it's got to
Yeah.
be Clipper based somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a hobby full of tinkerers that want to do stuff that shouldn't get done on stuff that, so they're going to figure out how to break firmware or hook it up to other things that shouldn't quite be.
There's some pretty smart people in this community out there. So, yeah, if you want stuff done, someone will figure it out.
Yeah. Some smart people in the room, Yeah, it's weird because Frozen, like, I always thought of Frozen as like more of the resin printing brand, not into too much FDM, but they do have a bit of an offering in FDM, don't they? It's kind of funny.
Yeah, they say the unit's not supposed to be out until July, so they have a little bit. There's a couple of YouTube videos out there of it being ran and tested and that kind of stuff, and you take a look at it, and it looks just like the AMS.
Well,
and then
yeah.
Then the machine that they're working with looks very much like a Voron 2.4.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the picture they actually have on their website there.
Yeah.
Too is that Voron-esque looking thing, and but yeah, like you're not wrong. It's a clone, but I mean that's how this stuff works. Like, I forget. I think I was watching. It might have been like Stefan or Thomas, but like they're talking about how like you go down to the manufacturing district where like in Shenzhen in China, and like it's just like on the same road side by side are all these 3D printer manufacturers, so they're all just like borrowing from each other.
Well, at least borrowing engineers,
right? And there's the tinfoil hat version of the conversation too, but I don't go to that one.
right?
But so here's I guess the real question with the multi-material printing for me too is like, and I think we talked about it before, but like there's a time savings if you're taking stuff for sale that would be multi-color that you have to paint, right?
Yes.
Like, and I think that's but the question upon that too is, and like we had a friend experience this this week. He was doing a really big print of a shield, right?
The Zelda shield, wasn't it?
And he was going, yeah, the Zelda from Ocarina of Time, but he almost ran out of filament on one, and then he didn't, and then he switched to a new spool of and like it was the same silk blue color and everything, right? And it turns out it was a different tint of blue, so like one was visibly lighter than the other, and he almost put that in the palette, almost into the multi-material, and like it would have started blending like the part half, like that piece halfway, instead of having the piece all one color, right? And so like from that standpoint, like the filament changed enough color that like a multi-material feeder would have made it actually look goofy, right? Because you're injecting like the sub color into your project. But like when you're talking about like like I guess like your wife makes a lot of figures and stuff with the AMS, right?
She does,
that-
yeah. Yeah.
So like from that standpoint, it's pretty good. Does it have? Oh yeah, you were on the Pokemon project too. That's right.
Yeah, I've been on the Pokemon project for her.
Yeah.
So
That's so great. See, and those look great, right? But like, did you ever do Pokemon and paint them?
yeah. Takes about 3 hours. Would have taken about 3 hours just to paint him.
And so, how long was that print?
This print I think was about 8 hours, I think it was total.
Okay.
But that's
Uh,
only one of them though. As soon as you
Yeah.
put more than one of them on there, the time gets cut in half and then cut in half again and then cut in half again.
Yeah.
So probably to do 4 of those, you're probably looking at about 12 hours to do 4
Right.
It's not bad then, because then you're looking at that 3 hours of painting, getting it back, right?
each. Yeah.
Yep.
And then the time. It's like my wife always says, her time is worth money as well.
Right.
So
Yeah,
she can
absolutely.
do something else while that's printing. For us,
Mhm.
it's worth it.
Right.
Well, and that's kind of like a trade show conundrum, right? Because people go to these craft shows where people have 3D printed things or laser engraved or cut or whatever it is, and they're like, "Wow, that's $50. That's I can't afford that." But like as a maker, we've put like $75 of material into that thing, and then like probably 8 hours of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah, and we're not, you got to build in the spaghettis and the failures and stuff too, because it happens. Maybe less now, or when you've got everything, your process tweaked, but it could still happen, right?
For sure. Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about, spaghettis. Can you explain it too? Never.
You know.
I've had the blob. The
Oh man,
blob.
remember the worm we created?
Oh, I love the worm.
So
The
so
blob.
we had the SX4, and we were building these brackets to hold some stuff in the schools. They mount on the wall, and you clip the stuff in. And one of them broke free, and then it just kept kind of oozing and making longer and longer. And it was like probably an inch and a half kind of thick, but it was oozed of solid material
Oops.
because it was printing all night. And so once I heated up the hot end to get this monstrosity off and pull it off, it kind of made these ears and whatnot. So we stuck some googly eyes on it, and it kind of looked like a big black coil of poo almost, but
That's
with
the
ears
poop.
and stuff. So it became a mascot at the office.
It lives
But
in
it's
here
got to
for
beat
me.
the hell out of a blob on your hot end.
Oh man!
Yeah,
Well,
it's
no,
not-
there was
yeah.
a big blob on the hot end as well.
Oh,
But-
okay.
But
It would've been bigger,
this thing was like is probably like 8 inches total, around, curved, and
That's
about
so
an inch
good.
thick. It was solid. Like it's like you could hurt someone with it. That's how thick it is.
And then like it literally had ears on it too, but they've
Yeah.
since broken. But like it was great. I miss that thing sometimes. But yeah, and the blob on the hot end's problematic too. Like I've actually seen and heard 2 this week that have repair issues where we work, but like people are blobbed it up and they're like, oh, the thermistor's broken, I'll replace the thermistor. Replace the thermistor, forget to look at the heating cartridge that's shorted. you
Yeah.
know, right? It's like
Yeah.
when you blob up, you gotta be very
Heat it
careful
up. Look
about
at everything
taking it
when
off.
you're
Yeah.
removing it. Yeah. Yeah.
Don't do
It's-
it.
Usually when I replace one, I replace both.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great
Yeah.
way to do it. Yeah.
That's typically what we do too. Yeah, it's always fun where it gets behind like the silicone sock and just starts
Oh, yeah.
oozing and pushing it off.
But this sock was supposed to help.
Well, sometimes you're better off. A lot of times you're better off just replacing the whole block. Just
Uh,
Yeah.
Gary
the
says the
whole
last
aluminum
last
block,
blob he had it
the
wrecked his cooling
cooling
fan, which I've seen that before. Like,
Yeah.
because it can go up into the hot end and just like destroy everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Helch is just adding in on the maker artisan's work is never understood, and it's so true. Like in everything we do, right? It's the value of your labor is usually never appreciated and taken in.
Yeah.
But like I bought the original Micro Swiss direct drive kit on my
Yeah.
CR10S, and it has when I first put it on and it was printing, it's great. It has blobbed 4 times, and every time I managed to save everything on it. And I'm impressed that it actually still works, because like you can see like where I put pliers on the heat block to try to
Yeah.
like
I think
I'm
I
like,
think
whatever if
the-
it's working.
the key is the thermistor in the heater cartridge when it's hot kind of protects itself because the plastic doesn't totally tear it away. It's when the print ends and it cools down, and then someone thinks, "Oh, well, I'm just going to pull this off without reheating it back up."
That's very true. Yeah.
Is where you get the problem, and you have to be careful even when you're heating it back up, because if it's wrapped around those cords, you got to almost hold the plastic that's around those cords so you can get the bulk of the rest of it away, and then then carefully snip the rest. 'Cause,
Yeah.
you can easily destroy that. But I mean, a heater cartridge and a thermistor costs next to nothing. Like it's really inexpensive. So
Which is really ironic, because they're probably the two most important parts on your printer, and they cost nothing. But go to try like a stepper motor, Hey,
mind you can't print really well if you have a blown stepper motor.
no, you can still push the head around. I don't know if you want to. At that point, it's just a glorified a 3D printing pen.
You could do Intel.
Yeah.
Truth.
Oh well. So Ray, what latest projects have you been up to?
I'm actually working on a RC car, so a completely printed RC car, the gearbox, the gears, everything.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm about halfway through right now. I just finished all the differentials because it's all-wheel drive. It's actually a G-Wagon.
Oh,
Okay.
nice.
Is what it is. So, and it's all. I bought the STL. It's probably one of the first STLs that I've actually bought, and there's 236 pieces to print. So for the $40 Canadian that I paid for it, it's well worth it.
Nice.
Yeah.
And the gearbox, what material are you using for the gearbox?
The person that made the STL suggested everyone to use PETG for everything, except for the gears themselves, and you should use ABS. Well, knowing me, that's not the way I'm doing it. my gearbox is actually ABS. All the gearbox is ABS. My differential gears and that kind of stuff is all nylon.
Oh, yeah.
I have polycarbonate ones as well. So I got one set nylon and one set polycarbonate, and I'm
So you're
going to
gonna
push
see
the
which-
limits. Yeah,
See which one's going to hold up the best.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's that polycarb nylon, or
Nope, just straight polycarbonate.
Well,
It's a
and then,
polycarbonate blend is what I got.
yeah. So
Okay.
and then that's the thing, right? Is he probably suggested that because most people can print the other material, right? They can't necessarily.
Exactly.
Not
Yeah.
everyone can print even ABS.
Yeah.
So PET, I could see why they would suggest PETG for that. But yeah, if you have the ability to print nylon, like, oh,
yeah.
Yeah. And
Yep.
I'm printing nylon, ABS, polycarbonate, all that stuff's being printed on a K1 or a K1 Max as well,
okay,
which there's no profiles in their software for that stuff.
right.
Yeah,
and
so
it,
Find my
do they have a heated chamber in the K1 K1 Max? So you're just using it, you bring up the temperature and warm it up in there ahead of time, kind of thing, before you.
I usually do. I put the bed on at about 110, 120, and I
just
usually
get
let
the
it
ambient
soak.
up.
soak for about half an hour. And by the
Yeah.
time the print is done, because I have a chamber monitor in there, by the time the print's done, it's usually about 33 to 35 degrees in that chamber.
And the polycarb seems to
Polycarbonate sticks no problem.
nice.
We got this new stuff at work that Spool does. This stuff here,
Yep.
and it's when you apply it for polycarbonate just slides off really nice, works really
Nice.
well. But when you use it for nylon, you got to almost get a hammer and a chisel out to get it off the bed. Sticks that good.
Yep.
So now, so there's different bed materials rated for like I know Bamboo has a few different build sheets, for example, with different coatings for, they have their PLA type stuff, then they have their polycarbonate stuff. Do you switch up the bed sheets or sorry, the bed sheets, or do you just use the intermediate medium to offset it, or do you use a combination of both?
Depending on what I'm printing, I use a combination of both. I have a textured sheet that I like to use mostly, but
Yep.
when it comes to nylon and polycarbonate, then I use the flat sheet or the PEI sheet that comes with the machine. Seems to work really well.
Okay.
I think a lot of it has to do with not necessarily the bed sheet that you're using, but the adhesive that you're using to make it stick or make it release
Right.
in some cases.
Okay.
Which makes sense. Yeah.
So what you're saying is I have to make sure that if I'm going to order some polycarbonate, I need to order some of that new stuff you guys are selling.
Yeah, you can. There's lots of stuff out there. We have that stuff. We also sell a couple other different brands of stuff as well. I was just trying this stuff out to see because we never used it with nylon before.
Yeah.
The old glue stick works well with a lot of things as well, just not necessarily polycarbonate and nylon. It needs to hold a little bit better.
Yeah.
Have you tried the nanopolymer?
No, not yet.
Just wondering because I use that everything, but I don't print any exotic. Or at least
Yeah, I've been
Yeah.
using 3D lac a little bit, only because when Derek was over in Germany, he brought it back for us to try out. It's okay for PETG. It works great for PETG. PLA, for whatever reason, it doesn't stick to it. And then I didn't dare use it for polycarbonate or nylon, just because if it didn't work for PLA, I didn't think it was going to work for that as well.
Yeah. Hild says he likes the bamboo sheets as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the new trend too. Like, people are starting to sell different textured PEI sheets, or like the ones that it's an interesting. It used to be like, I want flat and shiny, and now it's like, whatever, it's the bottom. Let's get fancy.
Well, the other thing is, I tell it, like, any of the printers that I've had the flexible sheets on, they stay level way longer because people aren't trying to pound the print
yeah.
off of the glass
Exactly.
and whatnot, and then get
Like
it
if,
so that you pop it off,
yeah.
let it cool.
I
Yeah,
usually take the glass off mine if I'm,
yeah, but that
exerting any force.
but you have something called common sense.
These are some of the
yeah.
These are some of the aftermarket bamboo ones we have. We have this one here.
Oh,
It kind of leaves a nice little pattern.
It'll
We
go
have a
good.
carbon fiber type one as well.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
And this one's our newest one. We haven't tried it out yet, but I don't know if you can see it,
Oh.
but it's color.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's supposed to transfer the color over
neat.
onto
That's
your
very
print.
cool.
We just haven't used it yet.
Mm.
Because a lot of the things my wife does is she does lettering for a sign. So what
Yeah.
she does, she prints the lettering upside down, so that when she
Yeah.
sticks it onto the sign, whatever textures on the backside will show up. So that's why we have these different bill plates, so that, okay, that's going to look like carbon fiber. That's going to look like a swirl.
Yeah,
This one's going to add a little color on top of the color, that kind of stuff.
yeah,
Truth.
absolutely.
So,
So, friends, I have to take my leave,
Sure.
but Greg will stay. Sorry to
Yep.
interrupt your your train
okay.
of thoughts.
Yeah.
So we'll see you all later. Thank you for
All right.
coming.
Bye,
and,
David.
bye, everybody.
Bye, David.
Take care, David.
You too.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting the bamboo in and experiment with it and whatnot. So
We've had ours for just about a year now, I think, pretty close
Yep.
to a year. We've printed a lot of things on there. We've had a couple little hiccups and little problems with it here and there, but
right.
it's nothing that I couldn't solve. But it was
Yeah.
definitely something Bamboo couldn't solve because they had no clue what the problem was.
Right.
And it just took me a
Is it
little
the
bit of.
K1? Is it the K1 that on right uh, on the bed it says you have to put glue on?
I think it does.
I was just wondering if you can use anything other than glue.
Oh, you can. You don't have to use glue. You can use anything that you want. When you buy a brand new Bamboo, they suggest you to use the glue that they have, which is just a white glue stick is all it is. But you can use whatever.
And that's only that depends on the material you're printing with, right? Because if you're just
Exactly.
using PLA, you should be able to print directly on their build sheet, right?
Yep.
I've
yep.
heard people say that for that particular build plate, you particularly have to use glue stick with PLA. I don't understand.
I don't
Just
think
what I've heard.
typically I wouldn't think you would.
Well, I know
now-
typically. I'm just talking about
Yeah,
the K1. The K1, it says right on the plate. I believe.
yeah.
Now I could be wrong. Could be-
Well, I mean, definitely, if you're printing something that is prone to warping or whatnot, then I could totally understand that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I don't know if the heated chamber was necessary for us for what we print, but since it was available and whatnot, and we thought we'd give it a shot with the new one. So
Yeah. Again, it depends what you're printing. If you're printing something hot, then you're okay. The other day I had the K1, the K1 Max, and the Bamboo all printing PETG.
yeah,
And in my printer room, and they were like 8-hour prints a piece, sort of thing.
yeah.
I went to school to work, came back, opened up the door, and it was 34 degrees in the room.
Wow.
That's the room. That's not the chamber.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, right? And I think what we'd like, it would be awesome if we could either get the UL acknowledged or whatnot, so we don't have to worry about the CSA approval, because it would be nice to be able to, because there's a few robotics programs in our school that, they would love to be able to print nylon or
Right.
something, right? So for their gears or whatever for their robots. So yeah.
Yeah, there's a school that we deal with quite a bit, and they have a good robotics classes and stuff like that. And we print a lot of their nylon stuff for them,
Oh yeah.
and some of their bigger stuff for them, just so they don't have to have a nice expensive printer. They can deal with whatever they're using.
Right. So they compared all the other parts, and then
Yeah,
you just give them a rate here. Well, here you want this sheet done, we'll do it. These
Yeah,
12,
and
12 parts or 20
exactly.
parts.
And they design all the parts. All we do is print. We don't do anything
Yeah.
but that.
Nice. Cool. And that's a good way of doing it, because I mean, not everyone can afford a $3,400 Canadian printer.
Exactly. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know? So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I know Derek said sometime in February they're going to be in stock. So
Yeah, it's kind of trickling in because of Bamboo's recall. I think they've diverted all their resources to getting that fixed, as opposed to adding more printers and having stuff shipped and things like that.
yeah. Well, hopefully, I'm anxious. I'm anxious to try it out.
I'll try it out before you. Don't worry.
I'm sure you will. Yeah. So, but I'm going to just bring this back on the screen. because we should thank these wonderful people, and some of them are on screen today with us. Dominic and Ray, thank you, and thanks to Hilch, who's in chat today, for being Patreons and supporting this channel. Again, you can go to patreon.com/3dmakeit and join us, and you get the benefit of being in our Discord, where there's great conversation happening all the time. And then we do these great live streams where we actually get to interact with you guys, which is awesome. So we really enjoy that. So, and don't forget, if you are so inclined to click that like button on and whatnot, and if you haven't subscribed, feel free. No obligation, but we're happy if you do. So yeah. I'm trying to think of what else is going on with us. I know we're trying to I've been busy with kid stuff, with robotics and sports and stuff, so I'm hoping that things calm down and then we can get back to our next part of our series. We did the Marlin stuff. Now we're moving into the Clipper, so we want to get back into that series and move ahead with that, so everyone hopefully can get something out of that. That'll be great. I know, Ray, you've got a number of printers with Clipper, don't you? Now
yeah.
Now, do you prefer Clipper versus Marlin, or is it just kind of 6 one, half dozen the other?
No, I prefer Clipper. For some reason, for me, it seems to be easier to use and to manipulate than what Marlin is. I always had a problem with Marlin. I don't know why.
Well, yeah, so typically once you've put the firmware on your controller, you don't really change it very often after that. Is that correct? Or is that your experience?
Yeah, pretty well, but it's easy. You can use Notepad to change it if you need to. They have a very good list of commands on the Clipper website if you're looking for something specific. I just find it was just easier.
But I mean, on the controller itself, you flash the Clipper, and then on the Pi, you can manipulate it all you want, either through the web GUI or changing switches very easily. But the actual firmware on the controller, once you flashed it, unless there's some sort of weird glitch, you probably don't have to flash it again, unlike Marlin, where every time you want a new feature or a new whatever, you've got to reflash and recompile and everything, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Whereas, so whenever do you use the which flavor of controller do you use? Mainsail or Fluid, or do you have you tried both?
I usually use Fluid mostly.
Okay.
But Mainsail is very similar. Derek uses Mainsail all the time, and when I take a look at both of them, they're both very similar.
They're very similar. I think the feature. I think Mainsail was first, and then Fluid came after, and then their development cycles are very close. Like, some of them are delayed by maybe 3 or 4 months, but when there's a new feature in Clipper, I think the development ramps up on both of them fairly quickly.
Exactly. Yeah. The only reason why I went with Fluid first of all was because everybody else was using Mainsail.
Oh, so you wanted to try it?
Yeah, exactly. Because I think you use Mainsail, don't you?
Yeah, I have Mainsail on my one back there. Now, I do like how they both use the updater, so you can, because they have the API, so you can pull in the latest updates for all your modules. Right. You've got your Clipper module, you've got your Moonraker. What's the other one? Clipper, Moonraker. I think there's is there 3 pieces or 4 pieces?
Yeah.
And then their main Fluid.
4,
Fluid or Mainsail, right?
Yeah.
So it's to keep them up to date and see if everything's up to date. It's really easy. and you don't have to worry about recompiling.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And if you want to, like in my case, I flashed 2 boards, controller boards, because I wanted another thermistor so that I had a chamber temperature.
Yeah.
So then I just had to figure out, okay, well, how do we pull that information in? And it was relatively easy to add a secondary controller. I assume it's similar if you're doing a CAN bus controller or whatever,
Right.
to add in, a tool head or whatever. It's just another controller that you've flashed Clipper to, and then you define it in your basically your text file, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's definitely a learning curve, but it's pretty once you get a handle on it, it's pretty slick.
Yeah.
So
Is there any use for?
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, is there any use for Octoprint with Clipper, or do you not need it?
It kind of replaces it.
Yeah.
Is what it does.
Okay.
Because you get, so if you Mainsail or Fluid, you get a full web GUI to which you can then manage your different files. You can see all your temperatures. You can output key information to an LCD screen if you want to interact with, depending on what you do. There's even modules to allow some of the older screens to interact with Clipper, so that you can still use an older LCD and whatnot to
Right,
do
yeah.
some basic stuff.
Does
But,
it?
but the GUI is where you want to do, and it's very Octoprint-esque in management.
Does it have similar features to the plugins that you use for Octoprint?
A lot of the, like, for example, I would always have different various temperature plugins, or like they had the time plugin that helped Time Genius or whatever it was. And there's a number of different Octoprint plugins that I would personally add. I would also add a one to change my colors around, just so I know this printer versus that printer. So when I had all of them open and whatnot, you can you can theme your stuff. You can change your colors in at least in Mainsail. I assume Fluid's the same way.
You can. Yeah. Yeah.
And so you can very much customize it and do your file management too, and whatnot.
Can you selectively cancel certain, like if you got a whole bed full of different models,
Yeah.
can you select models to exclude?
Yeah. That's more the slicer though. I think that does that more than the Mainsail does. Because I know on the slicer for Orca, for instance,
yeah, you
or
have
even
the
Bamboo.
individual object or whatever detection.
Yeah, you can come up on the my K1. It's rooted, so I have Clipper on there. I can actually choose if I don't want, I got a fail on one of those parts on my print bed. I can choose to ignore that. It'll move on to the next part. Is that what you're talking about, Dominic?
So yeah,
well,
you've got
this is an Octoprint thing. It's not a slicer.
yeah. Well, no, you can set. So I've always set it up in the splicer or slicer where you can have it slices the individual parts, but then that way, if one of them prints, you can cancel a single part.
Yeah.
And so that it'll just ignore that, and it'll just redo. It'll just continue on with the parts that didn't break free from your bed or whatever. And so that I've always done in the slicer.
Yeah, I've always done it in Octoprint.
Yeah.
Which I always depended on it.
Yeah, and so there's various different techniques to do that, and I believe it's in Clipper, and I think both Mainsail and Fluid support that as well.
Yes,
So,
I think so.
yeah, it's the interface is very, very nicely laid out and very customizable too. So if you have a specific set of settings or tools you want to use, you can really customize it so that it works with your workflow really well. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm big on watching my temperatures. My temperatures, the MCU, the temperatures of the chamber, all those temperatures. I like it because it's sitting up in that corner, and
Yep.
at any given time I can look at it. My Raspberry Pi I thought was running a little warm. It usually runs between 48 and 52. So
Right.
I put a fan on there and then activated the fan so that when it hit 36, it would come on.
Yeah.
So now, while my printer's actually running, my Raspberry Pi sits at about 25 to 28.
And that's one of the things I always did with Octoprint. On my Octoprint instance, I added the temperature plugin, and along the top bar, I have the chamber. If I had chamber, I have the bed, I have the regular temperature, and I have the CPU temperature of the Pi, so that I have everything, so that I'm aware. Because like you, I have some of my Pis are in, where they can be cool all the time. It's no big deal. But then other ones are in more of an enclosure. And so I want to monitor and make sure that the temperature's not going too crazy. And so, yeah. And so, but those are all baked right into Mainsail or Fluid.
Yeah.
I guess they're baked into Klipper, and then they're exposed through Mainsail or Fluid.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because Klipper's your core, and Mainsail and Fluid is just kind of your tool to access Klipper more efficiently.
Right. Yeah.
Is what it is. And the nice, so one of the reasons why you wouldn't still use Octoprint is in order for Octoprint to talk to Klipper, it's not using the API. So whereas Moonraker is your API, I do believe, controller that talks between Klipper and Fluid and Mainsail. Whereas in order for Octoprint to talk to Klipper, it actually uses UART serial connection to talk to it. So it's not as quick or as efficient in the way that Octoprint would talk to it, because they're at the time, this could have changed. There was no support for the API in Octoprint. Now, there's been major versions since I last looked at that, so things could have changed. But that's why the Fluid and Mainsail work so well, because their API ties directly through Moonraker to Klipper, so it's super fast, super efficient. And you're not limiting yourself on the control with some weird janky serial communication. So.
I think maybe Octoprint has fixed that, because there's a script that I use, and what the script does is it'll install your Mainsail or your Fluid, your Moonraker, and there's an Octoprint in there as well. So I'm assuming they have to have done something to clean that up a little bit somehow.
Yeah, I don't know that they have. Either that, or it's still just it installs the serial connection. Maybe the script does that. I'm gonna have to look into that, and maybe when we start up our series and we do a compare and contrast between Octoprint, Mainsail, and Fluid, we can have a more deep dive, because I'll have a better answer for you then.
Right. Yeah.
So. But we are at the top of the hour. So I've got a few things I got to do today. My daughter, we just repaired her car. She was having some issues. She has a 5-speed. She's just learning how to drive a standard. And it was the RPMs were just disappearing off and whatnot just when she was sitting there. So we had to replace a part, and it was just a sensor, and I can't remember which sensor it was, but it was like a 10-minute job to replace the sensor. And now it's working well. So now she wants to make sure she practices and gets the shifting really good, because she's been driving she drove it to school the first day, and then she had this problem, and so we fixed that. So
Good.
we're gonna go do some driving today. So
I never used the
manual.
that. Well, no, I started out driving on range.
Oh yeah,
I started out 3 on the column.
yeah. 3 in the tree.
That's how old I am. That's how old I am. But I always shifted based on the sound of the engine. I never.
Yeah.
Right.
No clutch.
Right. Yeah. Well, I had a buddy, and it was amazing. I could never just master it, but he could shift, like just get the RPMs just right. Like he did it by engine feel, but he would just slide this, it forward. It wouldn't grind. Pop it into gear, and then go into the next gear, and without ever touching the clutch. I'm like, I don't know how you're doing it's magic.
I used to do that. It's amazing. See, but then you had to have an engine that you could actually feel. The engines these
right,
days,
yeah.
you don't know they're running.
you can hers is a 2010. You can definitely
Yeah. Okay.
and when I drive, like I've driven hers and whatnot, shifting's nice and smooth and whatnot, and I don't look at the RPM. I go by the feel and the sound of the engine for my shifting and whatnot. And she'll get there. She hasn't even been driving it a full week yet, so she'll get there. I'm not worried about that. So
I always liked using downshifting instead of the brakes. So
right, and that's
best
what
thing
I'm
about
trying to encourage her, and that's what we've been working on is the downshifting. Because you do save your brakes and whatnot.
Yeah.
And honestly, it reminds me of regenerative braking in electric cars. It's the same feel as downshifting in a standard, and that's probably why I like regenerative braking so much, is because it's got the feel of a standard. So
you just have to be careful of first gear.
yeah,
When you're getting really slow, you shift into first gear too soon, you're going to go through the windshield.
Yeah, we had a jerky session. I'm like, push in your clutch.
Yeah.
But she's doing really well. She's doing really well. I'm really proud of her. She's doing great. So she's still a little nervous, but overall she's a good driver. She's had her license for a while, but she was adamant she wanted a 5-speed. So I'm like, all right, no problem.
Everyone needs to learn.
It's a
learn
theft
manual
deterrent now
transmission.
because no one else knows how to drive them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the more if you can drive a manual transmission, you really do know more about your car. Because you
Absolutely.
can feel the way your car works.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, you're more aware. So anyway, thanks everyone for joining us. That was great. Good to see you, Ray. Good to see you, Dominic. And everyone have a great rest of your Sunday, and we will see you next week.
Okay. Have a
You
good
too.
day. Bye.
Take care.